Alright guys, so in previous videos we talked about my top 3 fighting pistols, and much to people's dismay in that terminology, like I was saying, these are really designed to be complements of, or fighting secondaries, designed to be really complementary to a good fighting primary. Now this is going to be that video where I talk about my top 3 fighting primaries. So like I said, we talked about the top 3 fighting secondaries. This is the video that is going to be talking about the top 3 fighting primaries. So these are going to be guns that are going to be for the range, for the fun of it, and are going to be designed for maximum effectiveness. And we're kind of going to be talking about a little bit of the use application too, because these guns, I would say, are very complementary and designed not to be used just in whatever fashion or form that I feel like it, but designed to kind of complement in different roles. So first, let's start off with number 3. Now, in my opinion, because these are designed to be complementary, I don't think that there is really a, necessarily a top 1, 2, and 3, but these are kind of all equals because they are all pretty darn awesome. So the first one to start off with is the SCAR 17. SCAR H, this one in particular, is a SCAR 17S, and this one is configured in a pretty cool way. Obviously, it is not exactly factory, but it's also not far from it. And you will definitely notice, as I might do another video, that all 3 of these guns are kind of set up to be in a roundabout way kind of cloner builds. This one might actually be the most clone correct for early global war on terror and kind of special forces. But like I said, we'll dig into that more in just a second. So like I said, this is a SCAR 17S, and this one is designed really more in my kind of arsenal, designed to be a DMR, that kind of sapper type of rifle. And until I really started digging into it, I didn't even fully know that I wanted a 17 or a SCAR 17. I'd always liked them and admired them. They're cool guns, but what really sold me on the SCAR 17 is that these guns are actually incredibly accurate for being gassers and, for being a kind of just semi-auto battle rifle. These things are actually extraordinarily capable of delivering really high returns on being, capable guns for accuracy, like for long-range distance accuracy. And of course, this being chambered in 7.62 NATO 308, it is capable of taking hits or to making shots clear out to 600-700 yards. And that for me is what piqued my interest. Now, like I said, this build in particular, I have different stocks and the different rail add-on for this, but I kind of wanted to keep it like this, at least for the time being, because I wanted to go for that kind of early 2000s, kind of, or maybe mid 2000s, early 2010s GWAT era SCAR 17 battle rifle. So what you'll notice on this gun, starting at the tip and going to the butt, as we will, you have just the stock, brake for the SCAR 17. It is an FN, brake. It is effective, it is loud, it is concussive, but it does work pretty darn well. Next up, we have a Troy foregrip on this guy. Now this is in its short configuration, and that is primarily because when I typically shoot with most foregrips, I do more of like a C-clamp and use the, forward grip to kind of push back on. I don't typically hold this, but, different strokes for different folks. So typically it'll look something like this, kind of a modified C-clamp. So that shorter configuration makes a lot of sense there. Now, moving to this side of the rifle, we have that extended charging handle. Hopefully you guys can see there. The camera focus is not doing the best, but yeah, so the extended charging handle, this is, once again, an older SCAR 17. So this one is a reciprocating charging handle. So this thing does move as you shoot it. And once again, that's actually kind of what I wanted, because I wanted the older school kind of aesthetic for this gun. Now, next up, as it's hard to not look at, this gigantic tank of an optic. This is, of course, an Elcan Spectre. So this is the 1:6 version of the Elcan Spectre. And so it is the big, heavy duty tank of a freaking optic. Once again, very period correct in the type of optic. And Elcan Spectres were seen really on just about everything, but I think that it is cool, once again, having this on here kind of as a DMR setup, because once again, this is the technically 1.5 times to 6 times optic on this guy, and you have the Tenebrex kill flash in there, Tenebrex, scope cap there, everything, like how you would see this thing legit set up in GWAT style. So this thing is definitely heavy because of this optic, and I definitely do not think that the Elcan Spectre is the necessarily most effective optic, but for this build and for everything considered, like I said, it really matches that vibe of the GWOT kind of era, having a heavy, tanky optic on this thing, that this optic is pretty much bomb-proof. So once again, LK Inspector, 1 to 6 power on there, as you guys can see with the little flip lever. Super easy to use, super intuitive. Of course, we do have the stock, sights for the SCAR on here, or the iron sights, but obviously not usable. Now, I also have the ACR styled stock for this, but I actually really like the UGG boot on this thing. I'm not gonna lie, I think this is something that people either love or hate, but I really like the UGG boot on the SCAR 17, and it is pretty darn comfy. And like when you go to get your cheek on that riser, super comfy. It just works well, and even though it does definitely look like an UGG boot, it is effective to say the least. And yeah, I really can't hate on that thing. Lastly, but not least, is that this does have the Geisley Super SCAR trigger in here. So hard for you guys to really see, but super crisp, super light 2-stage trigger. But yeah, this thing has the Geisley Super SCAR trigger in it, and yeah, that kind of rounds it out. There is an aftermarket grip on this guy. I won't say it's an ergo grip on this guy, but yeah, so it gives you a little bit more texture, a little bit more comfort, but pretty much, once again, unlike some of the other guns that are, more GWOT inspired, this is pretty much what you would actually expect to see in a, like 2013, 2012 kind of GWOT SCAR 17 style setup. Everything here is pretty period correct, obviously minus the full auto switch, but for reasons we can't have that. So, everything else though is pretty darn accurate on this guy. And once again, I do have some other things. I could update this and make it look a little bit more modern. I do have the M-LOK rail for it. I just kind of actually like keeping it in this kind of, traditional GWOT style setup. So that is my DMR kind of sapper style build for my top 3 fighting rifles. Next, let's go to number 2, and this is what I would consider my like mid to close range kind of primary, and this is what I would consider honestly a PJ or Pararescueman inspired M4 style setup. Now, of course, this is an AR-15, but we're running a DDM4 Block 2 upper on this. And we're running a Trijicon LPVO on here. This is a 1 to 4 power, so it's not anything crazy, but from 100 or 450 meters and in, honestly, this LPVO works great, and it's Trijicon. The glass clarity is super great on this thing. I do run, or I am running an SMS laser on this, so not necessarily 100% correct, but it works, gets the job done. And this is a BCM lower on here. We have a Geisley 3-gun trigger in here, so it's a single stage, super light Radian ambi safety on this guy. Geisley charging handle on this thing, and I'm trying to remember everything. B5 SOT mod stock on this, and I think the only thing that really isn't like genuinely period correct to this setup is the fact that there's a dye-free Co grip on here. And the reason why I actually went the dye-free Co on this particular rifle build is that I really liked the fact that if you are doing longer shots, longer range work, this is far easier. If you are doing longer range work, you move your thumb over to this side of the gun, and it just really gives you a super comfy trigger pull when you're handling the gun in more of a long range style shooting setup, which once again, given this 3-gun trigger is stupid light and it is just incredibly smooth, it does make a lot of sense for actually being able to reach kind of out there. Once again, this is 5.56, so it's nothing insane or crazy. So, once again, I'm not gonna say that this is a 1,000-yard rifle. I mean, I'm sure with the right ammo, you could do it, but realistically, this is a just general purpose, SPR kind of, or not quite SPR, but just a general purpose rifle. I'd say like a GPR truly in the most true sense of that form. This is just a solid workhorse of a gun. So definitely a fighting primary for me, but a really solid gun. And like I said, it gets the job done. All right, rounding it out and finishing it up is my kind of L-Law we have at home. So once again, this is a gun I've covered quite a bit, and I'm definitely gonna do a full-on video talking about it in extent, but we'll go tip to butt real quick on this one. But basically what we have at the tip, or to start off, this is a Sig Virtus MCX. Now this is a pistol because this is a brace, just a telescopic brace. And at the tip here, we have the Q Thunder Chicken. This is an 8-inch, roughly 8-inch titanium can from Q, and we have an SMS laser, once again similar to the AR previously shown, and we have a DDM4. I'm trying to remember what they call this hand stop, but it's their aluminum hand stop. I really like it because it has the barricade kind of grip on it at the front, and it matches the style of the kind of hand stop I was trying to go for this build. So we have that. Of course, we have Magpul M-Bus Pro sights at the front. Then moving on back, we have an EOTech on here, an XPS EOTech on there, and then flipping over to this side, we have a Parker Mountain Machine kind of bad lever. I think they call it their battery control device for obvious trademark reasons, but essentially a bad lever. Now you do have to have a custom bad lever for things like the MCX because the receiver is just enough different that a traditional Magpul bad lever doesn't actually work with them. And because this is not a Sig Spear LT MCX style, this does not have the ambi, bolt release. So I did that because it helps kind of give that little bit of a creature comfort to this firearm and its controls. So aside from that, like I said, we have a gunmetal gray kind of base color to this, and we have, of course, M-Bus Pros in the back, Radian Raptor charging handle on this guy, and we have an SB Tactical telescoping brace. Now, like I said, I did the telescoping brace primarily because I'm still debating whether I actually want to Form 1 this and make it an SBR proper, even though a lot of people have told me I should. There's just, once again, a lot of paperwork to it and a lot of red tape that I don't necessarily love in that regard, but we will see if that happens. This will likely get traded out for a real telescoping stock, but for now it's a brace. Of course, I have a Magpul MS4 sling on here, and similar to the AR build previously shown, I also have the DDM4 Kung Fu grip on here. And the reason why I actually do really like the Kung Fu grip on a pistol like this, even if this was in a rifle configuration, the length of pull is really about the same. So when you have a super short length of pull on, either an SBR or, a pistol like this, if you have a, angled or slanted hand grip, kind of like a traditional, AR would, it is really uncomfy, and it kind of like binds up your wrist. So having that super flat grip allows you to, your wrist is less like kind of cocked back in, and so it's more straight and horizontal, I guess you'd say, or vertical. And so therefore it's a lot more comfy to actually hold and shoot for an extended period of time. So I really do like that Kung Fu grip, especially on, like pistols or SBRs. This is really, in my opinion, probably the way to go. So that's kind of this build. Like I said, I'll have a full video on each one of these guns coming and actually breaking them down. But it's kind of a quick cursory overview of my 3 fighting primaries. Definitely let me know which one you guys think is the best. Obviously, I forgot to mention the use application for this one, but if it's not entirely obvious, this one is chambered in 300 blackout with the suppressor. It has a 6.75 inch barrel on it. So this is a super shorty. So this is definitely my locked in close range, what I would kind of consider a PDW application, or a personal defense weapon application, where, when you take this and, just for relativity to the SCAR 17, you put this up against it, and, it's hard to fit both of them on frame, but you can see substantial size difference between these two firearms. If they're about equal, the SCAR is way off the screen, and this guy, you can still see the muzzle of the MCX. So definitely a very small, very compact, and reasonably portable gun. Now I will say, MCXs are piston driven guns. They are heavy, and of course throwing a suppressor on here only adds to that weight. So this is, still a fairly, substantial piece. I would say that ironically, probably all of these guns weigh about the same. The SCAR probably is a bit more, but I genuinely wouldn't let this thing's small size fool you. It is a hefty little tank to it, especially with the suppressor and the SD rail on here that accommodates, you know, the size of suppressor. It definitely adds a pretty significant amount of weight to the MCX system. But once again, realistically, being the super small barrel length and the 300 blackout cartridge as a whole, this is really designed to be a very close quarters PDW style firearm. So that's kind of its use application. So overall, like I was mentioning at the beginning of this video, I do really love my three, you know, fighting primaries, if you will, and they definitely serve different, you know, ideas and concepts. And if I want to, you know, use something for a particular application, if I want to, you know, go to the range and, you know, shoot primarily, you know, 25 yards and in, this would be definitely what I'd be taking. If I want to work out longer ranges, you know, medium distance stuff like 100, 150 yards, then definitely, you know, the AR-15, the GPR style kind of recce rifle just really fits that bill. And then of course, if I want to push past that, you know, taking the 308 SCAR H or SCAR 17 to those limits. And so I like how, like I said, in my system, these are complementary builds. These aren't, you know, like basically the same three guns in three different flavors of the same thing. These are definitely all very different and just very unique systems. Now for me, like I said, if I had to choose like a number one, I don't know, this MCX is still probably my favorite just because I love the way it turned out. And I really wanted a gun that was set up like this kind of PDW. And for me, I think the PDW is probably the least applicable, ironically, but the coolest, like cool factor wise, the coolest gun of them all. Having something like a PDW is just a very neat concept and very contemporary. Like I said, these are all kind of, you know, different GWAT style firearms, where the LVA was very much towards the end of the global war on terror. You know, you saw these things around 2017, 2016, 2018, right around that kind of end of the GWAT style. This was kind of the go-to for special operators, but things like, you know, this AR-15 was seen, you know, pretty extensively with like setups just like this. We're seeing pretty extensively with special forces like the pararescuemen or the PJs and other special forces, of course. And then obviously the SCAR, I would say, you know, in the early 20 teens, you saw, you know, a lot of SCAR 17s. I mean, they still are in active use with special forces, but typically you see them a little bit more modernized with, you know, like the M-LOK rail that goes to about here, which once again, I may change this one to that, but being how it is, I actually kind of just like the vintage, semi-vintage vibes of the SCAR 17. So like I said, they're all fairly, you know, like real appropriations or kind of amalgams of what special forces really did use at different times in different eras. And I think that that's kind of the coolest part for me personally with each gun. So yeah. Anyways, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video, this breakdown. This was definitely a handful and a lot of stuff. I'm sorry if I missed anything. I'm sure I missed a few different bits and bobs because there's tons of different things on each one of these guns that I have to try to remember off the rip. So anyways, guys, hopefully you enjoyed the video. As always, God bless, and I'm out.